Canine Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Grubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists. It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Welcome back to the Canine Detection Collaborative. I am here with my great friends, Stacy Barnett.
Hello.
And Robin Grubel.
Yes, hello.
And Stacy threw this one on us. And the topic today is resiliency. So I got a little bit brain-tied when she said that because it's so huge. You guys, really?
It is huge.
It is big.
It's so big. So I think this is just going to be a drop in the bucket. And I already made them both agree that we are not going to talk about resiliency with handlers. This is just going to be about our dogs because that's, oh my gosh, that just gets too big for my brain. So, you know, the way I work, the way I think. And one of the things that helps me is to understand what would you perceive as the opposite of resiliency in a detection dog? What does that look like?
I was getting all ready for my answer when you said, what do you think it is? And now I'm like,
You should know how I work. Come on now.
I should by now.
Because to figure things out, like I say before, I like to think about what the opposite looks like. And that really helps me hone in on what I'm really thinking about when I say resiliency. So a dog that is not resilient in detection work, what do you see?
I see quitting. I see a lot of quitting.
Yes. And what does that look like? What if you had an observable behavior?
I see stressing down behaviors, right? I see the dog slowing down.
Okay.
I see the dog starting to check out, right? The dog starts to scan a little bit more. Maybe the dog starts to yawn. Maybe the dog either starts to look to the handler more, or the dog starts to displace and pay attention to the environment. But the overall speed of the search tends to go down. And what you find is that that's when the handler is always trying to re-cue. So when you hear a handler start to re-cue repeatedly, it's probably an indication that their dog is quitting.
Is checking out. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So do you notice it when you say repeating? Is it, I think I notice it in obedience, especially because the dog becomes so aware of their environment.
Yeah.
That the handler almost starts begging their dog.
Yes. Yeah. And you start to see the handler start to over direct, right?
Yes.
So beyond more than what you might see normally. So it's got kind of like you take what the team would normally do, and then you exaggerate things like recueing and exaggerate things like directing, and basically, where the handler starts to take over the search, that's usually when the dog has started to quit. And usually that doesn't go well. If the handler has a sense of smell like I do, it's not going to go well. So. Yep.
I've seen the lack of resilience also as kind of like a learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that's because the handler or the trainer starts to come in too much. And so the dog's just like, okay, I'll just wait because they're going to tell me what to do and tell me how to do it. And I'm not ever going to do it good enough kind of attitude.
Yeah.
So would you say that the dog has a negative attitude typically, or a dog that lacks resiliency? Are they optimistic?
No.
Way too much anthropomorphizing for my brain.
I thought that might happen.
But I think an attitude though is something you can observe.
Yeah, it is.
For me, it turns out to be not an attitude. It tends to be a tail drops. Dog starts doing displacement behaviors.
Yeah.
There is a lack of intensity in the work. I've seen it a lot when it comes to environmentals. Mm-hmm. They start safety seeking for carpet or
Oh,
they freeze on the rubble pile, or
okay. Yeah.
whatever they're doing. Or
Yeah.
I remember doing a wilderness evaluation with a dog that wouldn't jump a small ravine.
Oh, wow.
And right. And that dog just kind of at that point on, to even get that dog's head back in the game,
Yeah.
was the intensity that I had seen in the dog's behavior of hunting before, after that, and or it never came back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I start thinking resiliency, what I'm thinking of, and I think a lot about this because of what I do with especially the disaster dog stuff. I
Mhm.
need to be able to have a dog walk up to whatever and be like, okay, yeah, I got it. I know my job. I'm going.
Right.
And I spend a lot of time thinking about all of these different little things that I have to set up to teach my dogs the skill set,
Mm-hmm.
and try to prepare them so the environments in which they're going to work are actually very underwhelming for them.
Right. Right.
And because the environmentals in my world can shut a dog down in no time flat, and you wash a dog.
Oh, I could totally see that. I could totally see that. I'm kind of picturing I had when you were talking about the freezing on the rubble pile, I had a little bit of a flashback to when I was trying to do agility with Judd. And he'd get to the top of the A-frame and he'd get stuck. He'd be like,
Right.
I'm not coming down. I'm up here. Not coming down.
Right.
And when I could get him down, he'd run to the exit.
I'm out.
Yeah, he's like done.
Yeah.
Very, very shortly after that, we quit agility. I mean, it was just like he just couldn't, and it was a safety thing, right, for him. And
Right.
he
Yes.
was not a resilient dog at all, just generally. Or at least in things other than nose work. And nose work was pretty resilient. But yeah, I could totally picture that. Totally picture that, which is so different than some of the things that we might see, like in nose work. I mean, we need, from an environmental perspective, we may be talking more like things like shiny floors, right?
Yes.
Or different types of surfaces.
I know detection dogs who have been washed from programs because they can't walk on shiny floors.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, I'm the extreme side of, no, we ride in a Black Hawk helicopter, we do a hot offload onto a sandbar, and now I want you to go find somebody. That's a little extreme.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, kind of what you're doing there with like the FEMA stuff and everything.
Yeah.
It's different. It's
but
different.
Even in the hunting dog world, if you have a dog that is sound sensitive and doesn't like gunshots,
yeah, that could be a problem.
some of that's a resiliency, especially as a young dog when they're first being exposed. Can they pop back and be like, okay, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah. I see a lot of resiliency issues with problem solving. I see a lot of times when because I think sometimes I'm going to jump into like, I guess, like kind of what causes it. Sorry, Crystal, I might be changing up the flow here.
No, we've already been. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's how I just started.
I know. I love your questions. I love your questions. Yeah. So I see a lot of this when people set like a really challenging hide, which I have absolutely nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. I set hard stuff all the time. And what happens though is that when the dog can't actually find the hide, people get wedded to the hide. And they're just like, they're going to find it no matter what, even if the odor is not available, which is, a good trick. And then you end up with the dog working, not getting reinforcement. And maybe the dog isn't ready for that level of commitment, right? You can sometimes, if a dog is ready, you can put them on a really hard hide and let them work like a long time. But if they're not ready for that, what you're going to start to see all those behaviors start to drop. And that's an indication of, number one, low resiliency in the dog, and number two, future low resiliency in the dog, because that's what creates it.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that as I start thinking about doing systematic search and teaching dogs to, search cars. There's a reason we put 5 hides on a side of a car to begin with. And we are not using nosework odors, so they're not huge. Like 5 nosework odors on one side of a car would probably be overwhelming for a poor dog. But, when we're talking about really low threshold odors, it's because and especially with your young dogs, you have to teach them. Some of that resilience comes into play because I'm teaching them, if you keep trying, you're going to figure it out. And I have to, and that's why I put a lot of hides out initially for my young dogs. And once they get a little bit older, that resiliency or grit comes into play that I can then use.
I love that word grit. And when people ask me what resiliency is, that's usually the first word I go to. Because that's kind of what I kind of picture. It's kind of like when they dig deep. It's like, you have something challenging, and instead of the dog going, that's really hard, you start to see them dig deep, right? Like they dig in. They're like, no, we're getting this, right? To me, that's resiliency.
And I think one of those things as a trainer, you have to be able to look at is your whole comment about people becoming wedded to the hide.
Yeah.
Is the fact that you may have set something out and it's difficult in general. And if your dog is starting to shut down, I would rather end the problem.
Absolutely.
Than step in and help.
Absolutely. Otherwise, like, oh, you're a great source of information.
Exactly.
Hey, Mom, it's getting hard. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think? Where do you think the hide is? Or Mom or Dad, right?
Yes.
Sorry. With nosework, we're 90% women at least.
Well, and your mom to your dog.
And I'm
so.
mom. I'm exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So but as a trainer though, you have to kind of be able to see, you want to push the dog, right? But you don't want to push the dog to the point that you start to see that type of behavior.
Yes.
So I think you kind of get into this, you have to finesse it a little bit where knowing the dog is so important. You have to kind of know what's your level of grit? Like if you were to your grit scale, right? What is your grit scale?
Yes.
It's like sandpaper.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly. Right? What's your grit scale? And then based on that grit scale, what can you set out? And then every so often, we'll set a hide and it turns out I'm like, whoa, I set a 10. I meant to set a 6. And when you start to see that, then you have to say, okay, I set a 10. My dog's grit scale is an 8. This may not go well, but
right.
Sometimes though you're like, okay, I set a 10. My dog's grit scale is an 8. Let's see how the dog does. And if I start to see a drop in intensity or motivation, we're out.
Yeah. Pull the plug.
Yeah.
People seem to not understand the value sometimes. If you've set up something and it's so just not working, just pull the plug.
Pull the plug. You can pull the plug, take the dog out, and you can alter something in the environment and then try it again. Sometimes just taking something, not even that the hide's on it, right? It could be something else in the search area, take that out, just depending on what the odor's doing.
Yeah.
Or put something in so that the odor has something to deflect off of or something. I mean, something like that can be just enough. But
or you there's a lot of times that
a lot of things you could do. Yeah.
You show up to an area and you're like, well, we're going to work on this today. And you get the dog out of the car and you're like, never mind.
Right.
I guess this is what we're working on today. And it usually happens to be healing with me. Or out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be odor work.
No, it doesn't.
And for some dogs, I've been spending a lot of time because I just did the webinar on training your teenage detection dog. And like today I was doing a little traveling and I got Sheba and Flash out of the car and at a Flying J parking lot, middle of freaking nowhere, right? All we did was play. We got out of the car. I threw the ball, or we played tug. There were huge trucks driving by. There was all of this other stuff. I was like, I don't have to do detection work. The whole fact that you get out of the car and you play with me instead of wanting to go pick up the 500 little fireball containers that are laying in the parking lot.
That's awesome.
I was super excited for a 14-week-old puppy. She was like, I don't care. You can like cut off a paw. And I was like, rock on.
Yeah.
That was training today.
You're talking my language when you start talking about play. So here I go. Are you ready?
Yep. Go. Go.
So you think about playing, and that's, I would say, my most effective way of teaching resiliency. The most effective way.
Oh, yeah.
Because the dog is genetically already predisposed to a certain amount of resiliency. Mm-hmm. And it's also changed through your training and through your current environment of the dog. So keeping that in mind, I think play becomes really important, because the play, you can use that to reduce stress. You can, and that's for yourself as well. But again, that's another topic. But still, if the dog is stressed or anxious, it's not going to be able to learn. No, it's not going to be able to learn well, for sure. And I don't want to tie those feelings to this great thing that I'm trying to do. So regular playtime can help alleviate some of that stress, and it promotes this bond, this relationship that we just talked about. It also helps build confidence. So thinking about how you can use play to build confidence, it helps them get problem solving skills. So you toss the toy a little bit deeper into the weeds and they go get it. And that becomes part of our game. And it's helping them understand, oh, I can overcome this thing. And so that's all just play, and it helps them adapt to new situations. All of that building confidence, and confidence being different than resilience. Mm-hmm. Also, your play is going to improve your focus. It's going to improve your concentration, because if I can't play with my dog for 2 minutes, I'm not going to expect my dog to work for 2 minutes.
Right. So you might want to start there.
Yeah. So start by, can I play with my dog for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
And then in those games, if you're requiring focus and concentration on those games, like play some location specific marker games. Okay, they have to listen to the word to know where the reinforcement is coming from. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You've now built in focus and concentration, which also builds in more of your relationship. It builds in mental stamina, and you're building resiliency. Bam. Oh, physical fitness. Ho-ho. Yeah. If you're not healthy, you're going to have a hard time being resilient, because your mind is somewhere else. Your mind is on pain. Your mind is on, can I do this thing? Can I overcome this thing? Which impacts your confidence. And when you don't have confidence in your physical ability or your mental ability, of course, you're not going to be confident. And that's also going to impact your resiliency. And I think one more thing I wanted to share, and I know that dogs and people are different. I get it. Okay. But I teach high school kids, and I've been listening, and everything you've been saying goes right along with what I do when I'm teaching humans. So I guess we can relate this even to teaching our dog clients. And that comes in. Okay. So first off, dogs, they show stress and anxiety through their body language, their behavior. I get it. Humans, we're through language cognition. Okay. I get it.
Our body language and our behavior.
Yes. But I mean, but that's the difference though. And I get it. We are different. I'm not trying to say that we're dogs so I don't want to, but I think the concepts of resiliency is very similar because we have these ways. So we can think, we can reason, we can reflect on our experiences. Dogs, I don't think we can really say that about them. We don't know how they reflect. Okay. Maybe they do, but we don't know. Dogs work on instinct, learned behaviors. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And so their adversity, their stress is going to come in their training and probably their living environments. True things?
Yep.
Okay. So then we deal with things like job loss, financial stress. I don't think that they have the complicated relationships that we have.
Probably not.
They also feel stress like through pressure and expectation.
Yes, for sure. So they have social pressure. Yeah. But I don't think it's quite as complicated as our relationships.
No.
So I'm just kind of saying that I get it. And maybe I just want to make sure that other people see those differences too. Because, in case they're fur babies or something. So when I'm thinking about this in school, I've always thought about it. I have to put mnemonics with things, and I always say resiliency is through approach. And so I use that as my letters. And so the A stands for adaptable. The P stands for persistence. The other P stands for problem solving. The R is recovery. The O is the optimistic attitude. The C is confidence, and the H is health. So those are always my keys for resiliency. And that was just something that it's just been in my head for probably 17 years at a PD thing that we had.
Oh, wow.
But when we talked about the optimistic attitude, so that positive attitude, I know, Robin, you said, I want observable behaviors.
Yes.
But thinking about that, are they eager to work? I think that's an observable behavior that shows an optimistic or a positive attitude. Are they engaged? Are they, able to regulate their emotions? I think that's also something we can call it arousal or emotions. But I think those are all parts of that optimistic attitude that, I would say is more of a human element. But as we were talking, I'm like, no, I think that also applies to our dogs. So I honestly think that all of those things that I talk about with my students are all things that relate to our dog training as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So adaptable, persistent, problem solving, they recover, they have optimistic attitudes, they have confidence, and they have health. To me, that's the baseline of resiliency.
Yeah. 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 And then if you're going to build it, you've got to build on all of those components.
Yes,
right?
You have to look at them individually, and you have to develop each. And you have to develop each in layers. It can't just be,
right.
I'm going to have a super confident dog, because you can have a confident dog and still not have a resilient dog.
Correct.
Totally.
And I think that blows people's minds sometimes.
That's totally true. That's totally true.
And I can have a great problem solver that still is not resilient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of that tends to be handler derived. The dog can be a really good problem solver, but if the handler is always giving the dog the problems that are too difficult, that problem solving, they're going to start I think they start to worry.
Yes.
And that's when you see that loss of confidence, and you start to see like one of those areas kind of dip, the other part of it that I think we also need to make sure that we talk about is the aspect of motivation, because if you are not providing enough of a reinforcer, there's not going to be enough oomph, I guess, behind the problem solving and everything. And it's just not going to be worth it. I find that the motivator, like for me, if I'm working on some grit with my dog, I can get more of that if I have a high value reinforcer.
Yes.
And if I don't, then she's going to just be like, well, why?
Well, and it's one of those things to pretty much say Crystal's right.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
What I didn't, it cut out, I think. What did you say? I can't hear that enough.
We seem, us as humans get so focused on getting to the end goal as fast as possible.
Yep.
That we tend to forget the value of really building some of those basic foundation blocks, and of which play and engagement is absolutely one of those, that it is the building block that's like the most important building block. Because, Stacy, you were saying that's exactly what happens to a dog. If my dog's out working and I've asked it to dig deep, and you've had to run across a really crappy rubble pile, and you've had to stand there and bark for me for 30 seconds while I hobble across the rubble pile, and you fell off while you're barking.
Yeah.
And you have to get back, that's resiliency. That's grit.
Yeah. And you have to pay that.
And I have to pay that.
Yeah.
Which is just as important for that bed bug dog that's working on slick floors and all sorts of things, that it has to go do its job. And your nose work dogs that I know sometimes may not be the most confident dogs in the crew.
Yeah.
but it took a lot of grit for them to be able to walk
Yeah.
into a big, scary building with shiny floors and sliding
Oh,
glass doors
look at
and all sorts
why.
of things. Right.
Look at why. Why going into, we were in, and if anybody wants to look at the walkthrough of this, you'll see what I mean. Colonial Heights, Virginia, NACSW Elite Trial, December last year. The garage search, huge search. There were 8 hides. I don't think anybody found more than 5. He found 5.
Wow.
It was this big, huge area. Here's this dog that, back when he got his ORTs, he was too afraid afterwards to eat a chicken nugget in his crate. To go from that to searching this huge area, he was climbing up. There was like this cab of this truck that was up on blocks. He's climbing up in it. There was trapped odor in there. He's like, it's in here. I'm like, it's not there, sweetie. It's trapped odor. He's just like, no, it's over here. And to me, for that little dog, that's grit, man. But you got to pay it.
Right. And you have to have a vehicle to be able to pay it.
Yeah. You have to have something that they're going, that they want, right?
Right. And it was interesting because I had somebody at one point, we had the young dogs out of the car and they asked me, well, are you going to introduce failure for your young dog? When do you start building resiliency?
Introducing failure.
Right. And my whole, and it took me a little bit to kind of compute it. It was a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question, but introduce.
Well, right. And failure, when do you start making it harder and harder and harder and harder to introduce that concept of grit and resiliency? And my reply became, I do it from day one, but it's done in such thin layers.
Yeah, but it's about feeling bulletproof.
But to build bulletproof, you have to have failure because that's how you improve. So
Correct.
Thinking about right in the beginning, it's like a Skinner box. I control my environment.
Yes.
You really can't make a mistake because it's the only thing available to you. And then as I start to increase distractions, I start to increase the things in the room or the sounds.
Okay.
Well, now I've layered in this next thing that the dog has to make a choice. And maybe they look over at that thing, but then they come and they do the thing that I wanted. And the thing that I wanted created the reward. So in essence, they did fail because they did that thing first.
Okay. So this is where, when I'm thinking failure, I'm not thinking errors. I'm thinking, when I hear the word failure, I hear the word loss of confidence, which for me is different than errors.
Yeah, that's a huge step. So failure for me is just, you failed that rep. You failed that.
Okay.
moment.
That for me, that's an error. That's an error. Like error. Yeah. And it's also, failure is like, you can have degrees of failure. You can have like,
for sure,
honking failure. Right. You can be like, no, I didn't quite get that right.
Yeah. I'm saying you didn't quite get that right. And that's how you're teaching them.
Yeah. I see those as two different things. Yeah. Because do I want my dogs to sometimes like not succeed? Well, it's not that I don't want them to not succeed, but do I allow, sometimes they're like, oh, that didn't work out. And that's fine.
Yeah. I'm not an errorless learner.
I'm not errorless either.
Correct.
Because
I want them to have a chance to experience something that says, hey, that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
So no reason to try that again. But I'm not going to do that as I fell off a cliff. That didn't work for me.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
And I'm not going to set them up either. Like, I'm not going to set up something to purposefully make them fail. It's like, well, I'm just going to push you. And if we don't get it, we don't get it.
But I think that's where the difference is in our words of failure, because I am going to set up an environment that I know that they're going to either glance at or look at, or it's going to distract them momentarily, but it didn't get anything for them. Yeah. So I am purposely doing that. So even in building bridges and things, like knocking on a wall or making a noise, I know that might be a bit of a challenge. And so that very first time they may look away and I'm like, oh, we have to reset now. We get to try that again. Yeah. Can you do it without looking away? And that very next time, I'm going to guarantee, because I've set up an environment in a situation, I know my dog is like, oh, let me try it again because I know the right answer. Let me do it. They're like raising their hand, that kid in the front row, like, let me
Yep.
do it again. And it's like, okay, I'll let you do it again.
Uh-huh.
You know, you do the same thing and they're like, haha, you didn't fool me this time. And that's distraction training, especially for absence of handler and module ring.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just like,
Absolutely,
bring
yeah.
on the distractions. The hardest is when it's silence and nothing is happening. That's the hardest. Distractions are actually way easier.
Yeah. I mean, I usually try to set something up so I think it's pretty likely the dog's going to be successful, but there's kind of that sliver of like, they may not be. And I'm kind of okay. I feel like that's kind of the level of when I feel like I'm pushing the dog,
Uh-huh.
If I kind of like, well, like 80%, 85% likelihood they're going to get it. But I've also built up that reinforcement and the desire before before I make it pretty hard like that. So it's
all about gradual exposure. I mean, it's gradually exposing them to challenges. And if you keep giving them these new challenges, it's going to push them and it's going to develop more resiliency. You just start with the simple tasks.
Yeah. And if it's too easy for too long, that doesn't develop.
Oh, that's terrible.
Either.
You'll get a lot of
totally.
displacement and checking out. I mean, it's
yeah.
the silly example I always give is like, what's 1 + 1? What's 1 + 1? You just keep saying that. And it's like, just leave me alone. I don't care about it anymore.
Yeah. Or they say, fine, 3, right?
Yeah. I'm going to start guessing other stuff and get creative because clearly you don't know what you want.
Right. 12? What?
Yeah.
11? 1 + 1? You want me to just squish them together?
And so that brings up a great point about varying the training session. So we talk so much about patterns to build confidence, but if you don't bring in that variety, that's going to help them become more adaptable. And that helps them become, better able to handle new situations. I shared on my Facebook page, reading a book called Stuck, or How to Make Things Stick or something like that. Of course, I don't remember exactly the title.
Yeah.
That's not good when you're reading something to help you remember things. But it talked about there's kids, it's 8-year-olds, and they're in PE class and they're doing the same amount of reps, but some of the kids are tossing bean bags in the thing that's 3 feet away. And the other kids never throw it in something 3 feet away, but it's always 2 foot or 4 foot.
Yeah.
And
I saw that and I didn't see the answer. What's the answer?
well, I didn't give the answer because I said, if you comment, I'll give you the answer. So I should have said, if you comment or listen to our podcast, I'll give you the answer.
Oh, there you go.
Go back and edit.
Yeah, I will. Because the answer is, do you think the kids that always threw it in the 3 foot did better on the test when the test was only at 3 foot? Or do you think the kids that did only 2 foot and 4 foot did better on the 3 foot test? They'd never, ever thrown it in a 3 foot bucket.
I think the 2 4-footer.
Okay. Robin, what do you think?
I agree.
Absolutely. And that's what the study showed.
Woohoo, we were right.
If you think about that, it's about giving variety and that adaptability.
Yeah.
So they've had to learn how to adjust. So now the kids that have only done it in the 3 foot, which then kind of makes you think, but yeah, what about the kid that plays basketball and they make you do like 1,000,000 free throws, or they have you repeat the same thing over and over and over again because, air quotes, muscle memory. Well, that really starts to kind of throw some of that on its head. So the kids that did the 2 foot and the 4 foot, well, they learned adaptability and they learned how to alter their throw. If it was a little too hard, I know how to change that. I know how to adjust my throw. So I've been thinking about that a lot with my dog training and about creating resiliency as well. I think it's so cool that kind of tied in with what we were going to talk about tonight.
Totally.
Well, and I think your resiliency and fluency go hand in hand.
Yes.
Because what your fluency, my little definition of fluency, you're not going to be able to train for absolutely every environment out there.
Right.
But it is creating enough experiences that the dog is successful in those experiences that it can generalize and come, rise to the challenge and be like, okay, I got it. Because I have XYZ experiences behind me. And if we start really thinking about environmental socialization with our puppies, which is not letting your puppy run up and say hi to everybody, it's environmental socialization. That's what we're trying to create. Our dogs that are like, oh, yeah, okay, there's a bulldozer. It's not a big deal. I don't have to bark at it. It's fine.
And along with that, if you're changing the location, you're changing all your Ds.
Yes.
All 4 of them, especially
6. You're funny. There's at least 6, maybe 7.
But seriously,
Well,
changing the location, the D's, the type of training, that's all going to be what helps keeps your dog engaged and motivated.
Yes.
It keeps it fresh,
Yep.
it keeps it active, and that also creates fluency, and that also creates the resiliency, and it all just builds on itself. It's all about the approach we take. See, I brought the approach back in. My whole
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
adaptability, persistence,
Yeah.
problem solving, all that stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and the other thing about variety, like I was just kind of thinking the other day that variety is different than random.
Yes, it's thoughtful,
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
It's thoughtful. I think sometimes, 'cause
gradual too.
yeah, because variety is about breadth. It's about intentional breadth to what you're doing, versus random, which is just kind of ad hoc. So I think kind of thinking about it in terms of, purposefully making variety versus just being a little haphazard.
I think that goes back to health too, because I think that's what kind of creates your dog to be mentally fit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's kind of this mental fitness and physical fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a stretch. I don't know, but I'm just in my brain, that's kind of what just clicked there.
Yeah,
They can
yeah.
handle the physical demands of detection work, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's the mental demands that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Mhm.
get that through the variety of training. So I wouldn't just throw them on a giant rubble pile for the first
No.
time with big
No.
crevices they have to jump over.
Yeah.
Like that's going to crush them, if not
Yes.
kill them.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
So it has to be gradual. So I start with like a pile of rocks and,
Right.
build that up and get the confidence, and it's a mental adaptability as well there too.
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
There's a lot to
Totally.
resiliency, you guys.
It is, and I guess, and this kind of goes back to Robin's comment about the failure part when I was like kind of reacting to the word failure, but it's like, when do you start building resiliency? I think like day one, when you start working with your puppy.
Yes.
Every session of play, every session that you are working, you are either building it or crushing it.
Yeah.
And the thing
Yes.
is, it's not just that one thing, because it's the whole approach behind it. So are you building their problem solving skills?
Yep.
Or are you doing it all for them?
So I have an example that I was very excited about.
Oh yeah, do tell. Story time.
Yay.
So, I'm playing with, I was playing with Brava in the side yard, and we were working on, I had her had her new balls that I was working with. And we went in the side yard, and she immediately remembered that there had been baby bunnies and the old lilies, right? And I think there's something living there, because all of a sudden, I saw the prey drive like kick in, ears went forward. She got into that, like, you ever see a picture of like the foxes pouncing through the snow, like they
Love
go up
it.
and
Yes.
yeah. So she had kind of that body posture, and I was able to call her off of that to come play with me.
Fantastic.
I was like, wow, right? So I figure for me, that is kind of like, if I can build some of that desire in the play part of it, I can then take that and start to transfer that into other areas when she may be dealing with distraction.
Yes.
So I'm actually putting money in my resiliency bank there through that exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was so proud of her. And we kept the session short because I got some good reps after she ignored the baby bunnies, and then I brought her back in the household, and she's like, my turn again.
Ooh, I love story time. Let me share a story too. So last summer, one of the things that I thought was fun about building resiliency and giving some of the handlers there at Canine Census, we were doing one of the seminars. I don't remember which one it was now, but one of the fun things we did was teaching the dog to be creative problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's puppies, and you start just incrementally making the challenges a little more fun, a little harder to get to their just food, just food on the floor or food on a dish or whatever. And so maybe the first time,
camp, I think,
was it distraction camp?
I think so.
It's just so fun because
Well, it was just a problem solving exercise on let's show you step by step how to develop grit.
yeah. And it was so fun to see the handlers go, that's all? Like, it just made it so simple But that's all training is. It's just slowly, incrementally make the challenge a little bit harder. If I would have put the last problem we did as the very first, the pup would have been like, I have no idea how to get there. I'm out.
Exactly.
I can't push that thing open with my nose and push through and knock over a boot and get over a box to get a treat. No way, that it's not worth it. But because each step was presented and taught to them that, guess what? You can push open this gate with your nose. Guess what? You can knock over this boot. You can go over that box. And so because they had all of those skills, it built their confidence. And what I love about that is it starts to give them this decision-making process that they have to think creatively, and they can make decisions, and they're rewarded for that decision. And it's created in this kind of safe environment for them.
Yeah.
And it's fun for both the trainer and the dog. And I really believe that's the foundation of resiliency that I like to build with all of the training I do. Yeah. Let me give you a small little problem. It is a problem. It's a challenge. You're going to have to work a little bit to get through it, but I'm looking at the individual dog. What are they capable of physically and mentally? So that's my little story time.
Yeah, you're creating initiative.
Exactly.
We want our dogs to take initiative, right?
Yeah, and it's initiative, and it's being bold, and it's all of those things. It's the things that we want to try and teach our kids. Right?
And I feel like just that exercise alone is a great example of this resilient approach, because it teaches adaptability, it teaches persistence, it teaches problem solving. They recover, because if they couldn't quite get the thing open, they try a little harder. And then if it falls down or something, like, whoa, but they go right back to it because we've built it up in incremental ways. It creates this optimistic attitude where they're like, I enjoy this work because I'm going to get food. I'm guaranteed it's going to happen if I just push a little harder. And that's what creates the confidence. And it gives them that mental health and physical health. It's that fitness of being able to do the obstacles, but then work through that mental problem. So it's like that one little thing is enough to show the trainers there of how you build resiliency. And it's through that approach.
Yeah.
Well, and I think sometimes, there's a conversation that ends up happening of, well, do you reward effort?
Oh, you're going to open that can of worms?
That's probably a whole episode, right?
Pandora's.
So is that we weren't going to do this in the next episode, but we should.
That's like a Pandora's box.
Well,
right there.
but I want.
How much time do we have?
I know, but Crystal, you said something really, really important that I think trainers and handlers forget to really understand, is that when we start talking about incrementally trying to build resiliency, one of the things that happens is that the reinforcer is readily available for the dog to get upon completion of that particular little task.
Yeah.
It's because what tends to happen is we as humans are like, okay, we're going to set up this problem for our dogs. And if they don't perform it at the level that we expect them to, they're like, yeah, that's not good enough. I'm not going to reinforce that.
But on the flip side, you have a whole other contingent where they set something so hard and the dog gets a little bit of the way and they just feed them. And so now you're teaching your dog to quit.
Yes.
Or the dog to say, hey, it's really hard. Can I have a cookie?
Right.
So that's the type of rewarding for effort I definitely would not do.
I agree.
The rewarding for effort, if we're not careful in how we do it, we can cause more problems than anything else. But like anything, it's kind of like you have to be smart about your training decisions, right?
And thoughtful, which goes back to, you know what? Be thoughtful about it. And if it's not performing the way that you want it to do, pull the plug. Yeah.
And right, exactly. And it's okay to pull the plug. And you know what? It's okay that the dog doesn't get reinforced.
Yeah.
Because you pulled the plug, or with your high value reinforcer. I always praise the dog. I'm like, hey, you did great.
Right. Okay. So thank you. That was a great blank search, because wow, that odor did not present like I thought it would. Great. The 3 minutes in, we're done.
Yeah. I'm not going to give you your A+ there, but you did great.
So this goes into the next topic that we're not covering today, but the resiliency of the handler. Because what we're talking about is the approach of resiliency for the handler, because they're not confident. and they're having
Uh-huh.
this stress and anxiety about this concern about failure or concern about mistakes because their lack of confidence. But how do they get confidence? And so that's where I have really made that shift with Radish. And I kind of talked about it last time that me being more confident in my training with her has built her confidence in knowing what she's doing. And then where it's this beautiful cycle, and I'm seeing her resilience just, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful thing to see, and it all goes together. It's this beautiful circle.
Yep.
But if I had a fear of failing, and that's what I really had before, I had a fear that she wasn't the right dog, and I wasn't allowing her to be the right dog with that mindset. And so you got to go all in and
you're right.
Just embrace it, because if you don't, you're going to lack the confidence and the dog's not going to have it. And so we'll have to get into that when we talk about our handler resiliency.
Yeah, I call that typecasting, because it's kind of like if you have a dog that, you kind of have an assumption about in terms of what they can or can't do. You can kind of like, burn it into your brain in terms of like, well, this dog can't do this dog can't do this, right? And it turns into like a typecast. It's like the actor that always gets, played the bad guy or whatever.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Manifest that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I think it's so important. People start, they'll talk to me about their puppies, and I'm like, you know what? Your puppy, treat it like you're building the dog that you want, that they're going to turn into when they're about 3. They're not going to be that dog tomorrow.
What?
You know what I want?
What?
I want a resilient dog. It sounds beautiful, doesn't it?
Yes.
And if you think about how do I select a resilient puppy, is that possible?
I think you can have a genetic predisposition, but I think then you either fulfill it or you smash it. Hopefully you fulfill it.
Agreed.
Yep.
And I think selective breeding, going for the breed that's going to work best for your thing. Like, I'm not going to get a bloodhound to do Mondio ring.
That'd be interesting. But
Correct.
I just wanted everybody to have that visual for a second.
Well, and I think of, search work or detection dog work, and especially in search work, because people have breed fetishes.
Breed fetishes?
Yeah. They want to go out and get preferences. And
it's all good. We're not judging.
Right. They want to go get some off breed. Not that breed can't do it.
Right. Try to prove a point. Like, get the dog that can do the task.
Yeah.
Yes. And I went off on one of those tangents, and at the age of 5, I have a really nice house pet, and she's lovely. But the job that you're trying to do is already hard enough. And, that's actually where competition stuff comes in is fabulously, because it doesn't matter. Doesn't really, yeah, because it's you and your dog going to do a fun thing, and that's amazing.
But nobody else's life is on the line for it.
Right. People aren't going to explode.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's actually the beautiful part of
I think it is important
being able to compete, is that you can take whatever dog you love and you can bring it out, and but
yes.
I do think it's important to note that we're talking about like the neurotypical type dogs. Like, we're not, if somebody's out there with a dog that, is not neurotypical or whatever the word is, like, we're not harping on you, not at all. So please don't hear that. I mean, we're just talking about dogs that we see, and, the ones that are more consistent. Like, I think about Yukon and his inconsistencies. And I think sometimes I would take what I would hear from people, and I would take just a little piece of it sometimes, and I would ingrain that, and I would just take away that moment, and it would hurt. And I'm like, why do I do that to myself? And so I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there in case somebody else is like me and does silly things like that, because it doesn't help you or your situation. and just recognize that every dog is individual, and we have to talk about generalities, and we have to talk about the dogs that we own and love, and some of the dogs we've worked with, and like my good friend Susan Whimsy, like, oh my gosh, she has done so much with her and has worked so hard, but not a typical dog in the brain. And so what's going to work for her is going to be totally different. So we're each individuals with our individual needs, just like our dogs.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I didn't know if I didn't recognize that. So thank you.
That is actually a very valid point, because especially for those people who have rescues.
Well, and even breeder dogs, like look at Checkmate. He has terrible hips. And I got a Malinois from what I thought was a reputable breeder to have a healthy dog to go do the thing. Even reputable breeders can have dogs that don't turn out.
But sometimes when you pair two really good sets of genetics, sometimes they just cross wrong. You ever see those litters that just like, there's just litters that are just like, all the puppies just,
it should have worked.
It should have worked.
It should have worked. Exactly.
On paper, that should have worked, but man.
Wow.
You hear about those litters, it's like all the puppies have problems, but they're from reputable breeders, and they're from genetically tested dogs and everything. And
yeah. And so I think about the people out there that have dogs that are cowering and they're scared and they can't even go into a room and they can barely come out of their box. And is it possible that those dogs can become resilient?
Yeah.
Well, genetics is a big part. And a bigger part is the training and even more the environment they're in, providing the safety. Now, this is a neurotypical dog. I'm not saying you're going to take them from, being a cowering, peeing on themselves dog to being out there like Y ruling the world and nose work. Like,
I mean, the thing is, Y is doing as good as he can, but I know, and this is the thing about this is when you have a dog like this, you start to realize what you're creating is fragile. It's so fragile because yes, I can create this. He looks resilient and he's coming out there with confidence, but that confidence is so fragile because deep inside, he is still Y, right? And part of that is, I think, me coming to terms with that and understanding that I can't change that, but I can give him the tools to not only cope, to kind of blossom, but I still have to realize he is who he is, and it's still a core of him. And I still have to nurture that, So like that's kind of, and I think for him, I think it may have been a combination of maybe how he was, his early few months of, I don't know. I mean, I got him, he was like, about a year old. I mean, I don't know his background. It could be genetic. It could be, it could be his breed is not necessarily known to be the most resilient breed in general. So there could be some genetic components. It could be anything, and he is who he is. So in the end, it doesn't matter. Right. But he is who he is. But he's definitely not a dog who would ever could be a working dog. Exactly. But the point is, when we're talking about genetics, like there's like I'm looking at my girls, I'm like, yeah, they could definitely work.
Right.
Why? No. But that's okay. And it's no judgment, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
And I think, going back to the original question that kind of got this going is about genetically resilient dogs. I think you do have to think about the breed's history. What is their purpose? So a lot of our working dogs, our sporting bred dogs, they're bred to be resilient, to be persistent in their task. So if they're going to hunt or if they're going to track or herd. And I also think about most of them have high energy because it requires a lot of physical and mental, stick with itness to maintain that resilience. So definitely, if you have the option, set yourself up with the right breed that is already bred to have this energy and to have the likelihood of giving you the desired characteristics you want for your activity of detection.
Do you think it's emphasized like that certain genetics being emphasized is kind of what builds into that? I don't know, it just kind of popped in my head. Like if you have a dog that has emphasized prey drive and you're doing bite sports, or you have Like, is that gonna build? Is that gonna feed into that resilience?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure. Because
yes.
think about, even observing the puppy's parents, observing
Yeah.
the lines in the pedigree. So if this border collie is more in the herding aspect of the one that will nip and grab and bite the legs of the sheep and the cows and all of this, well, that's the one that's probably more appropriate to use their herding instincts for protection sport. Whereas the one that never nips and is always eyeing and stalking and laying down, that one's not going to be as easily trained to do protection sports and maybe never will. So that slight selective breeding of what piece are they trying to build in that line will help us decide which one's going to be better for the activity we want to do.
I guess what I'm saying is selecting for the specific types of drives that you need. Is there a correlation between that and resilience in general? I mean, it's just a thought that was just kind of
for sure
percolating.
I spend a lot of time looking at lab pedigrees, and I think that when you start looking at pedigrees and breed characteristics within those pedigrees that you're looking for, you also have to take and consider, training. And there might be different lines that are more resilient than others. And, I think FEMA level disaster dogs, some of those dogs are, for me, really resilient. That's the ones I want in my breeding pool.
And I love the idea you just brought up of resilient to our style of training.
Yes. That's on the handler trainer side, so we won't go there.
We could probably start some takeaways now. Let's not go there. Who wants to go first? Do you have any takeaways?
I think my biggest takeaway is you can build resiliency, but you have to do it a thin layer at a time, just like a Teflon coating.
That's a good one. I think part of what I think I'm going to kind of layer on that is that you can build it, but you can also take it away if you're really not careful. But you also don't want to kind of be a like a the whole helicopter parent type deal. The dog has to have the opportunity to have, because it's a little bit of a risk of whether or not they're going to, sometimes that they're going to be successful, and give them something challenging, let them work it. But just be aware that if they start to lower their energy, you may want to cut bait.
My turn, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just think you need to be patient and consistent in your training. And that's going to help you also build your dog's confidence and motivation because you are layering it, going back to that idea. But I have to go to play. Incorporating regular playtime, putting that in your dog's routine. It's fun. It's a great way to build confidence. It's effective at promoting resiliency. And it's going to improve their performance and detection work. So it goes back to that motivation and that reinforcement.
Yeah.
I always have to go back to play. Ugh.
Play is great. So everybody, take a few minutes and go play with your dog. Thanks for joining in on this episode of the Canine Detection Collaborative, and go train.
Canine Detection Collaborative! We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to k9detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.